welcome back. And if you tuned in late today, my very special guest is Steve Simpson, and he is an advocate for young people and children, and he's written many books, and he speaks all over the country, and he's been in some of the big TV shows, so we're glad to have you here today. And we're talking about young people and children and how much influence the family, it all goes back to that family.
Absolutely. Now, I wanted to mention also now, during the worst of my abuse, when I was suicidal and living through it, if a teacher had come up to my classroom and said, who would like to read about suicide? Or who would like to read about child abuse or being a child of alcoholic? I never would have raised my hand.
No.
No one would. So how do we get the handbook to them? This is what I've done. It's a little unique here. The Teenage and Young Adult Survival Handbook is in all my 4 novels. It's a book within a book.
So these are books written for young people.
Young adult fiction,
they're stories,
fiction,
they're
absolutely.
novels for young people. And inside is included the information.
Exactly.
Life-saving information.
Exactly. This way, a young person isn't embarrassed because they could be just wanting the fiction story.
Yeah.
Or in reverse, if a concerned adult wants to get them the information, it's non-confrontational. You can say, well, I thought you liked science fiction. I thought you liked action drama, because there's still a story. The handbook's with it, and you pray that they read the handbook. So that's and professionals love the idea, because it takes away that struggle. How do I get that information to them without having a problem? Now, as far as the 4 novels, just real fast, you have Runaway. And Runaway is of 2 runaways, and much like myself, children of alcoholics, and they had it all mapped out, these 2 boys, and went to Manhattan, except it doesn't work out the way they thought it would work out. They run into what's called a street army, and a lot of problems happening, and one of them is suddenly on his own, and he was the inferior one of the 2 and didn't know what he was going to do. He gets adopted by a Robin Hood type of street army, and the toughest member is a girl, and they fall in love with each other. Except that eventually they train him how to protect himself and handle himself, and he goes on a revenge quest on his own. He becomes almost like a James Bond of the street gangs, or a Batman. But there's a lot of revenge, and there's a lot of hidden stuff. You find out the girl has her own agendas that were hidden. The next book is Child's Island. All runaways go on a trip by someone who recruits them and says, I have another place that's far from everywhere else, different dimension, and you can be away from all these problems. Except, unfortunately, the journey doesn't go where they thought it would go, and they lose their guide, and they're on their own defending this new world. Next is The World is Wrong. And The World is Wrong, you have young people that suddenly facts aren't the way they're supposed to be, things are all inaccurate, lives have changed, and they suddenly discover that a project they worked on as teenagers, to build a machine to change the world, might have worked after all, but not the way they wanted to. Once they try to fix it, it becomes a thriller, and it's the world against them. And finally, there's Who Am I? Now, Who Am I combines the fiction and nonfiction. Who Am I is a young girl that's a victim of horrible domestic abuse. She ends up in foster care. And she's graduating high school. She's a star of a track team, and good thing, because suddenly she's being chased by hitmen. Her boyfriend, who goes to help her, suddenly has all these powers and abilities. And at first, that's a big thing for her, just in time, except because he uses his powers, he has other individuals after him. It becomes a great chase. And during all the science fiction and the excitement, they talk about their problems that young people have too. So all my characters, no matter how fantastic the fiction stories, my stories read like a movie they'd want to see, like an exciting film.
Okay.
But all the characters are realistic. They relate to them. They could be children of alcoholics or victims of child abuse.
So these books are really an outreach to young people who are struggling.
They're entertaining and yet life-saving information inside them.
And the information, and so there is information where they can reach out for help.
Absolutely. I have a whole
in
section.
Each book.
There's a whole section of 800 numbers of all different organizations that they can call for free, or go on the websites and get help.
That's wonderful. And these books are available. How can people get these books?
Well, of course, on Amazon, but also the easy way is probably go to our website, which is powerpublishingcorp.com.
Powerpublishingcorp.com.
Yeah, Corp, powerpublishingcorp.com, exactly.
And that will give them the information to get the books. There's a little bit about you as
Both.
well.
Yeah, about myself. They can read about each book individually. They're soft cover. I made them inexpensive so anyone can obtain them.
And each book has the information where they can, the numbers, where they can get help.
Absolutely. There's a whole section on that. All different organizations. Different teens have different issues. So
Yeah.
I meant specific for them and have information for them
Do you
also.
find, and you go around the country and you speak to groups and churches and all kind, do you find that many young people are struggling today?
Yeah, there are a lot of issues out there. You know, 1 out of every 5 children is a child of an alcoholic or drug abuser today. 1 out of every 5 children.
Oh, that's frightening.
So you can imagine, that's just one problem. Suicide is the #1 cause of death of teenagers and young adults. #1 cause, it's not drunk driving, it's not leukemia, it's suicide. And I say that's an unnecessary death, it's a preventable death. So there's so many problems that are laid on them today. There are wonderful families. There are many good families, but there are many dysfunctional, broken homes, and the kids literally have no one to lean on. There's no one that they can, go to for help, and that's what happens. And they take on all the guilt in the house, like I did. So again, they're facing a lot. They really are, and the economic issues today. Parents, even in functional homes, have gotten a bad habit lately. They discuss their economic problems with their children, and you're not really supposed to do that. You can discuss it with your peer. There's nothing wrong in telling your child, you have to tighten up a little bit, because things are tight. That's part of life. But when the parent says to their child, I hope we don't lose our house like the neighbor did. If I lose my overtime, we're going to be in the street. Do you realize what you just did to that 12-year-old or 15-year-old? Their grades go plummeting down. They get hopeless themselves. And even in functional homes, they're doing that. I always stress to parents, they're not your peers. Don't lean on them with your problems. Let them focus on their schoolwork. You're the adult. You focus on the economic problems and so on. So that's a big stigma that's happened lately. A lot of kids are carrying their parents' financial burdens on their shoulders, and which is unfair. They're teenagers. They're not supposed to deal with that.
That's amazing. So you found when you go around and you speak, you get the feedback from...
Absolutely. Another thing I want to point out, very important to victims of child abuse. There's 2 reasons they don't. One I mentioned before, they blame themselves. I thought it was my fault.
They don't report it, for one thing.
But there's another reason they don't report the child abuse. Usually in most homes, there's the abuser parent, and then there's the codependent parent who doesn't abuse but allows it to go on. The young people are afraid to get the codependent parent in trouble. So they almost don't report their abuse to protect the codependent parent. Now, what I stress to anyone who's watching this is you won't get them in trouble, you'll get them help. They'll force them into counseling, and they'll stop having relationships of abusing people. So, again, that's another reason people don't realize that the abused child sometimes is protecting the not abusing parent, because they think they're all going to go to jail, and that's not going to be the case. So I stress again that, and of course, it's never your fault to be abused ever.
And in each one of these books, the numbers are there for a teenager or a young person to call for help.
Absolutely. They're the ones that I mentioned, the National Runaway Switchboard.
They're free calls.
All free calls, all free websites. It's almost after the handbook, there's like a glossary of different organizations.
Okay.
And not just America, I have for the UK and Canada also, just in case. Numbers that they can even call from there if they're there and they need help. So yeah, I made sure of that. And just they entertain in one sense, but in the other sense, they have life-saving information inside them.
So here you have used your own childhood to bring help to hundreds and hundreds of other people.
Oh, when I speak in schools or I write my books, there's pieces of me in them because I'm reflecting my own childhood, just like you said, and they like that because I didn't learn it in a school. I lived through it. When I give suggestions in the handbook, whatever the topic is, I even have surviving the holidays in a dysfunctional home. Okay, it's all my own experiences. So if a young person reads it, they relate right away because they know this person lived through this, but this person survived this, and that's the key. So it gives them hope. Well, if he survived it, then I can survive it. If he turned his grades around, I can turn my grades around. If he doesn't think of suicide anymore, maybe my life will get better and I won't think of it anymore. Everything is personally written.
That's beautiful. And these books are available, powerpublishingcorp.com. And I'll keep that information here if you didn't get it. But if you are a person concerned with young people, perhaps you're a teacher, a Sunday school teacher, someone who cares about kids, these books are available and there's help for everybody. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Come back. Okay?
I will. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing with us, Steve Simpson. And wherever you are, stay happy. We'll see you next time.